What's good? What's good? Hope y'all are doing well. Today is Juneteenth. I'm celebrating today. Maybe you are too, but today is June 19th, 2023. And yeah, we're gonna have a nice stream today. If y'all go ahead and recognize the title is Accumulate and Wait. And in big bold letters, that's it. I think at this point in time, when people start to get bored, it's kind of one of those things. They're like, oh, I got to be doing something more, right? Stick to the plan and everything will go perfect, right? Hopefully you got a plan. And that's what I'm all about here is talking about how to, manage a portfolio in those ways that may be fitting for an investor. Typically, with that being said, I normally talk about how I handle things. And, does that mean, hey, you do everything that we talk about on the stream? Of course not. But maybe there's a gem or two that you may be able to take to add to your toolkit. And so the chat is live. What's good? We got Art in the house. What's up, man? Hope everything's, doing what it do. It's a cool, chill Monday. Before we all probably head over to the work week this week. But who else we got? We got Gent Esquire. What's good? I love that profile pic, man. It's pretty dope. I like that. What else we got? Okay. So some things here in the chat. What are my views on the Federal Reserve stopping the interest rate? Yeah, we can definitely get into that. This is just standard stuff. And so what we can do is go back in the history book and say, okay, well, what happens? They were talking about, hey, we're just gonna pause and we're gonna go up, and it's kind of trying to put a thread out there. But we'll take a look at actually what really happens once they do pause. And so I'll probably pop that up here first thing. What else we got? All right, we got Alberto. What up? What up? Hey, we live. Let's get it. My man Wade, hey, I appreciate the conversation we had the other day. I love getting to know people in terms of their journey with crypto. So it's awesome to kind of get to know you a little bit more and kind of you shedding some light on me as well, man. That's what it's all about here. What else we got here? So thoughts on the ideal time to accumulate altcoins. Oh man, this is gonna be the bread and butter of the conversation because that's actually what I'm going to be talking about for a good portion of this. A good portion of what we're going to be talking about today, y'all, is on-chain data and how we could really use that to help us understand time durations because it's so key. When we see the settlement layer, which is Bitcoin on-chain, as how it operates over the past 3 cycles, not 1, not 2, but 3 cycles, there's a very cyclical nature to how these things operate, especially when it comes to time. And then so we all just got to strap in and understand that this is not an overnight thing. And once we understand that, we then need to refrain from asking the question, basically, when will I make money? If y'all remember, if y'all haven't watched it, I would really encourage you guys to go watch. I did a stream called New Investor Syndrome. And one of the key things that a lot of new investors do, they are always constantly asking, especially when they first enter into the market, hey, when am I going to make money? You want to refrain from doing that because all you're trying to have is consistent growth. That should be the goal outside of, hey, when will I become a millionaire? With that being said, yeah, we'll get into especially those topics, especially when it comes to accumulating altcoins and when to do so. What are the coins that you're taking a swing at? Yep, I'll hit you with a few of those too. And then, yes, y'all, please, please, please. It ain't even really for me. It's really just so this good information could get out to more people. Hit the like button, If you like what you hear, if you like what you see, maybe even subscribe. We've got over at this point, this is the 54th episode. So 54 episodes of straight, not just fire, but just good quality, sound, fundamental things to just help you learn how to become not just a crypto investor, but a money manager. That at the end of the day, that's what you need to be. And so that's what I'm going to try to continue to present my case. And so we're going to go, let's go here first. We're going to go jump into TradingView and we'll jump into just straight up just information in regards to the federal funds rate and how we are currently, at a point of stoppage. And so let's go ahead and hit that really quick. So Fed funds, as y'all know, I love to do this stuff live, showing you guys the back end, how to even, create the charts. The reason why we do certain things is because we want clarity, right? And so even when it comes to say, hey, how did you do that? How did we get there? Like, how do we pull up this chart? How do we do that? All of these things are so important. TradingView, this site alone changes things. Like I was having a conversation with another buddy of mine, like, he's more so stocks, but just in general, you'll be so surprised. Us being people within crypto, we are so well advanced compared to the average investor when it comes to looking at charts. It's not even close. I'm talking about guys that are even financial advisors. They don't even have proficiency in looking at these charts typically like how we do. Okay. So question, what do I think about this interest rate pausing here? So this should be updated, should be 5.25. And as of now, we start to print a little bit of sideways action. And then so, we're something in that ballpark there. And one thing that I want to always remember to tell you guys and encourage you guys is to look a little bit deeper outside of what anybody says, whether it's just me or anybody that you see on YouTube or a politician or Jerome Powell himself. Anytime that he's saying something, for example, he's saying it to try to get a particular response. A lot of YouTubers do that to try to, hey, evoke a particular response from their viewers, for example, and then so you got to understand this is a humanistic thing. It is immeasurable how people naturally do this stuff when it comes to just saying it's not manipulation, but you are trying to, hey, grow and show a narrative that you would prefer to have. And then so you got to understand, well, what is the narrative that the Federal Reserve wants to have? They want people, especially markets, because they treat the real economy different than markets. Markets are forward looking. They try to sniff things out in regards to what may happen in the real economy 6 months to 12 months out. And so what he's trying to project is a sense of, you know what? Yeah, I think we may have another bump. And so we may have another bump. And who knows? We may get 2 bumps by the end of the year. We may end up at 6%. And so 600 basis points, especially with a time frame from coming from zero. And if we just look at that, well, one, we all just have to remember, okay, how quick did we do this move here? And then so we did that under a very, very short duration. And then so if we can kind of pinpoint it right here at the corner, and then we go to the point that we did. So we did this in about a year, 500 basis points. And then so we then can kind of contrast and say, okay, well, the spread on the 10 to 2 year is inverted. And so typically that's just bearish and just crazy times. And that is not always the case, right? It's the case in many scenarios, but is it always the case when inflation is the main catalyst of why, we may be having some, real economy problems? As we have seen, inflation is starting to come down. And then so the question is, hey, when they pause, they go sideways, what happens? They're trying to project as if they're going to go up higher. But the question that you must ask yourself, have we ever done that in the history of the Federal Reserve? And mainly what I like to do is post 2008, right? Post 2008. But even then, I would even say post the savings and loan crisis here. And so what we can do is take an assessment, because one thing is clear, very clear, right? This environment looks a lot different than this environment, right? Very easy to see. And then so there's a lot of things that changed within the Federal Reserve and how they handle these rates after this time period. And so this is very sporadic, up and down, up and down. This is very much more controlled, aka manipulated per se. And so within this time frame of this new data, which is still, when you really think about it, this is 30 years of data. At one point, did we see this portion where they pause and then they go back up just right immediately? So did we have that there when they stopped and paused? No, we went down. And this is several years later now. This is 4 years later before they went back up. Same thing here. Here's a pause, then they go down, right? Pause, then they go down. Pause, then they go down. Pause. So 1, 2, 3, 4 instances in this new regime of how they handle interest rates. And now all of a sudden, but here's the thing, if you guys go and do your Googles, guess what? Same thing. Guess what? Ben Bernanke saying the exact same thing. Hey, we gotta keep our. That's a horrible arrow. Let me try that again. So let's cue that up. There we go. So Ben Bernanke saying, hey, this is going to be one of those things. We don't know if we can kind of keep these rates here. We may have to go up. Just got to fill it out. He said the same thing as what Jerome Powell is saying. And then so do not let these people fool you on what they do versus what they're saying. And so with that in regard, my thing is this. Uh, whether they go up or not, the likelihood is yes, they will pause. We don't know the duration. It may be 4 months, it may be 8 months, it may be 2 months. We'll see. But with that being said, this is just another evolution of this whole cycle of growth, contraction, trying to figure things out, back to growth. So we're in that period of time where when interest rates are low, that's the growth. And then after that, we have contraction, interest rate goes up. You have the figuring out, and that portion also includes while interest rates are coming down, that's still the figuring out. And then from there, once we get a floor for interest rates, whether that be maybe 0%, 1%, 2, it doesn't matter. This is growth. And then so how do we back that up? Easy. We can pop on the NASDAQ. So let's do this. NASDAQ. Let's go here. No, that's not the full chart. Let's get something a little bit better here. Or we can just do SPX. All right. 1 second. We're going to put that on a new price scale. Boom. There we go. And then so what I'm saying is reconfirming of the concept of growth, contraction, figuring things out, and then back to growth. So let me get rid of some of these arrows to make this clear. Clear that, clear that, clear that out. And so I'm hoping that you are able to see this because it's not like a crazy like super advanced like oh well, these many factors within the economy is going on and all this wage price spiral, inflation, all the buzzwords, buzz terms, banking systems in shambles, recession, deflation, disinflation. I mean, whatever term that you want to look at, and it is the same type of stuff here, right? The moment that we start to level out, it's like, okay, the engine's getting back ready to grow, right? Growth. The moment that we level out, guess what? This period of here is growth, right? That's going to set things and reset the interest rate payments for all of these, not just even the Fed, right? But all of these central banks, they are on a 4-year recurring interest rate repayback. And so with that being said, they owe debt too. And for a lot of the time, if they can't collect that through tax money, they've got to print that money. And that's what we know as money printing. And so, with that being said, boom, same thing, growth, growth, growth. When we finally get that figured out, right? Growth, 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 a little COVID in the middle, but this is the fun joyride that we all want to be on. And then so being in the market is a great place to be. And so it's not a secret, that this is a part of the dynamic of how markets are going to try to front run and prepare for safety during these times. But nonetheless, there is only one option, and that is to just use more debt. That is the only option. No one can say anything different because that's what's been going on for the past, 60 years. And so we're going to continue to do that. So that kind of answers that in terms of what do I think about the Fed's fund rate. So I think another topic that I kind of want to hit is transition phase. If y'all remember, I did like a 4-hour stream. This is maybe 3 or 4 streams ago, and I talked about the Ethereum duration map. And so we'll pull that back up really quick. So we have a full-on Ethereum duration map that really helps us understand. Let's put that in the log. So it really helps us understand, the different portions of the price movement. And it's not one of those things that can be easily, I guess you can say, understood, when you're first coming into this thing. So let me see if I can get this in scale and try to briefly break this down. I did a larger breakdown of this. If you want to go back and check that 4 hour stream, just kind of click through the past few streams that I did and you'll find it. But nonetheless, this breaks things down in a pretty digestible way. I know there's a lot of lines on here, but to make things fairly simple to understand, obviously we have bull market, transitional market, and we have a bear market. So bull in green, transition in orange, bear in red. And so we've experienced a bear market, obviously, for Ethereum here, and then we've experienced a bear market for Ethereum here. Uh, we've also experienced very bullish phases. And so this portion here, when it first launched, the first month or two was not so great. Then it took off because Bitcoin was taking off, and some of that liquidity started to pair. And then same thing here with this phase here. That's all just making money. Look, if you had Ethereum at that point in time in its first cycle, you can kind of catch that 14,452%. That's 144x, and that's not even the whole move. And so that's what we're all searching for. That's what we all want out of our investment. And so how can we capture something like that? Or well, understanding, what happens to the people that invest at a more risky time after something has already done 100x. Yeah, you're going to get a bear market. And so, just kind of paying attention to this duration map. One thing that we can see is, if you were to add this time period and this time period, so the bullish portion, we had 406 days, 210 days. You add them together, 616 days. That is the equal time length of what we had from this low portion here from COVID. 616 days of bullish price movement. Now, with that being said, in between, we had a duration of 370 days of just boring, like, hey, are we going up? No, we're not going down. Are we going up? No, we're going down. And then so this is what we're going to talk about today. These transitional periods where you see price action not doing anything and you feel like, have I made a mistake? If you're feeling like you've made a mistake, guess what? You're actually in a very, very, very good position. Because guess what? When people have the most confidence, feeling like, oh, I'm not making any mistake, I know exactly what I'm doing. When you have that feeling, guess what? You probably made a mistake. And so that's what happened to all the top buyers here in 2021 and in 2022 as these things come down. But so duration, we are in a transitional phase, obviously from November, but mainly really more so from June of 2022, but definitely from November of 2022. Now, with that being said, I want to look at some on-chain data that really, really helps us understand how to kind of see the duration in real time and get the real numbers, not any estimates, but these are exact timelines that we've experienced for BTC. And in terms of what does it look like for its bear markets, transitional markets, and its bull markets. And so blue here, as y'all can see, this is the bullish phase. So for example, that first, man, I just imagine being somebody in 2009 or 2010, just, going ahead and getting that easy free Bitcoin, 881 days of just nothing but bliss. Like, look at this. The chart is straight up, and so that was the first bull run. Then we had a period of time, 163 days for the first bear market. So this one is the outlier. And so there's a couple of questions that I'm gonna kind of make plain because a lot of people are like, well, why does the chart look like this, where we had crazy gains, then they're good, and then they're not so good? The concept of diminishing returns. I have the answer to it. I've been contemplating it for a long time, but it's a very, very easy answer to understand. And I'll talk about that in a sec. But obviously, so we got blue here for the bull, red here for the bear. And then so now these black triangles, these are what we want to focus on. And these are the transition periods. And so when we talk about transition periods, especially with duration, we are talking about from the low of that cycle coming off the bear to the standpoint of where price finally goes over and past the previous high. So let me say that one more time. We take the low from the bear market, and we have to say, hey, this is transition until we pass the previous high. So for example, we will be in transition until we pass this high of about 69K. And technically, yeah, the bull market starts before that, right? Like I would consider like all of this pretty bullish. I consider even, all of this pretty bullish, even though we haven't got up to, what was this, like that 20K top? That's still pretty bullish, but things really get rocking and rolling once we pass all-time highs. And then so let's kind of talk about that and see, okay, well, where are we at today? So we have some data here that I think is pretty helpful. What I want to do is just look at the timelines for these triangles here in black. So for this first transition period from this low to finally get past the previous all-time high, 458 days. Okay. And so that was coming off the first bear market. But then one thing that you're going to start to notice is things get really, really, really in shape in terms of how similar that these timelines start to become, because this becomes a larger market. More people know about it. More people know about the halving. More people, kind of understand the game theory for Bitcoin. So it makes it a lot easier for people to jump on a bandwagon when certain time points and durations hit. And so, for example, now this transition period from this low to finally eclipse this previous high, this is 770 days. Okay. And, we have our bear market, 364 days. This one here was 411. And then so as you can kind of see, this is what, maybe 3 months apart. No, more so what, 2 months apart, really. So that's pretty close, right? Give or take a couple months. And so same thing here. That's pretty close, give or take about 30 days in terms of the transition period. And so the interesting thing here to start to look at is, now that we're starting to put some things in line, now we can get an idea of, okay, well, what can we not necessarily predict, but get a little bit more fond of expecting of, hey, how does this thing go, right? It's not something that's going to be too hard for us to kind of get with. And so one thing I'm going to read here, this is a dashboard that we have here on Glassnode with an information sheet, and it kind of gives us a little bit more perspective here. So it says these transitional periods tend to see prices bounded between the realized price and the realized price plus zero point 0.5 standard deviation bands. And so we'll talk about that, and that's in blue. And so since setting each low, the following proportion of trading days have been between these boundaries. And then so we're going to talk about this chart here. So we kind of got a feel for it, right? The past two cycles, two in a row, took about 770 days. And then so I have the actual data sheet that we can say, okay, well, how many days are we in now? And so we'll get to that. But now once we kind of talk about, okay, so one thing that we have talked about, especially very early on in the channel, is, okay, this thing called realized price. The realized price, once the payment, or I guess you can say the settling layer for Bitcoin, once people lock in their gains or lock in their losses, you take that aggregate every single day and say, hey, where's the fair value, aka realized price? And when we get below that realized price, I was pounding the table. I mean, a gazillion streams in a row. Hey guys, please, please buy something, buy something, buy something. And for those that did, you're probably sitting pretty good. You're probably sitting at a really good high or low cost basis compared to where we are currently. Now it depends on exactly what you're buying, because some of these alts have kind of retracted down, but that's just going to give to the credence of saying, hey, now can this alt survive? Because really, if it survived thus far, what's going to stop it from not surviving better portions of the market? Because think about it, if it survived a bear market and had life, when Bitcoin had life, it also had life. What's the probability of, if Bitcoin is having a bull, it'll also have somewhat of a bullish nature in its price chart? Something to really think about. But anyways, so we talk about the transition period. So we kind of see, okay, these so we have the black triangles, and then now we have some vertical purple bars here. Now, this is slightly different. This is not tracking when we have price low passing the previous all-time high. And this is now tracking when we finally get above the realized price. So like here, we finally get above the realized price, like here, we finally get above the realized price, like here. And then what we did here in January of 2023, we finally get above the realized price. And then that portion to when we finally break out of the zero point 0.5 standard deviation on the positive side for the MVRV ratio. And so one thing that's pretty interesting is what we find is that the amount of time, so this is early bear market, the amount of time in the whole cycle that we spend in this duration of this transition is about what, 78%? 78% here, 64%. If you want to get that to just a nice round number, it's easy to kind of see anywhere in between 2/3 and almost 3/4 of this whole bull move is in the boring transitional period. And so, one thing that I can assure you, if you feel like you're bored, if you feel like, oh man, my investment ain't working out, I thought it would just take one, you listen to too much hopium right away. One, two, you need to understand how duration comes into play. And it's okay, because what does this do? This actually helps us and gives us way more time to accumulate. So if you got a regular 9 to 5 where you get paid monthly, guess what? This is better for you. And then so it's okay. We don't have to be millionaires today, but as long as we understand, and like how we talked about a stream ago, if we can start to understand when things start to get overheated, everything's going to be all right. It's going to be a nice, easy plane ride. And really, this is going to be an easier hike, give or take, towards the top of the mountain, which, as y'all can see, we're going to Mount Everest here, right? We are going to Mount Everest, these peaks. This is what we want to get to. And so that's like one thing that we all have to kind of look at. And so this is some good stuff here, basically kind of affirming to us a couple things. One, everything is all good. We're in a nice spot. Two, if there's some things that you see is undervalued, and the closer that we come down to this realized price, is just letting you know, hey, you are early in the queue. You're at a lower, right? AKA lower risk level, versus if we ever come to the top of this band here at any point in time, you find yourself at a higher cost basis and most likely a higher risk level. So just keep that in mind. We're in a good spot. And so now that we kind of got an idea, let's kind of see, okay, where we at today. So we got the full detail here. Let's kind of bring that into the workbench. Splack up. All right, so we're gonna get all this data in here. And so one thing that you'll notice is, especially for like this bear slash early bull portion, they put them together because Glassnode, of kind of what they're trying to present the data as, they're not going to declare the bottom already, right? And that's fine. I get it. They got to protect their butt. But with that being said, we can start to see, okay, well, where are we? And so if we kind of come to today's date, if y'all can see here in the right hand corner, we are just about 222 days in to this transition period. And then so same thing. Now, what do we need to do? We need to say, okay, well, how long were these transition periods one more time? Okay, this one was what? About 730 days here. This one was about 770 days here. And mind you, this is getting back to all-time highs. So another thing that I was telling some folks in in the Telegram chat that I have, I was like, hey, you guys, even though the transition period is what, 700 days or whatever the case is to get back to all-time highs, you got to understand a lot of these alts, I mean, they perform very well, and we don't even need them to get back to the all-time highs. Even if they get halfway there to their all-time highs from even today's price, that's locking in a nice 3x, 5x, some cases even like a 7 or 8x. And that's only, Bitcoin coming back to maybe 50K. And so that's a exciting thing when you think about it in these ways. And so don't lose hope. Don't lose your conviction for the things that you have bought in if you understand them. And if there's a high chance that it will continue on in this next cycle. And like I said, if it's already survived the worst of this bear, what's the chance of that it's going to continue to just track with BTC and Ethereum in the bull? So now when we kind of dive in, we can see, hey, we're in a good spot. Bear's done. And now we're at a point to where we are at the early portion of the transitional phase. And so, what we can do here is come back out of there. And one thing I do want to present to you guys here is kind of looking at the 30-day price high and low. So one thing that is pretty cool, which here on Glassnode, what we can do is we can kind of see what is kind of like, this is a version of the Bollinger Bands, but we take the 30-day price high and low and see, okay, well, where do we find price for Bitcoin at? And we can really use a lot of the on-chain data in terms of seeing, at what point are holders and entities of, different sizes, when are they coming in and stepping in and buying this asset? And so if we were to, let's say, let's take the last two cycles. So we're going to take this cycle from 2019 and where we are today. And then, so one thing, if you guys can kind of look pretty closely, and what I'll do is I'll actually just need to zoom in. That way we get that on the big view. Let's load the data. Cool. All right. Um, let's because I want to talk about what does it look like when we are in a bullish phase, and how does price react, and what happens when we actually do touch the lower portions of this 30-day price high and low deviation bands here. And so one thing, we can kind of see, okay, this uptrend back in 2019, we stuck to the high positive side of this 30-day price high, so we're just here tapping that blue, tapping that blue. Then we come back to red, and then we tap the bottom of that red, and we keep kind of straddling between both of those. And then, so one thing that I, within the span of 30 days, and like, how do you know if you're getting a decent buy-in price, for example, within a shorter term time scale? I know that's something that people ask me all the time. Hey, how do you go about your DCA schedule? When do you know when is a good time to DCA and when is not? This is one way that we can actually tell within a shorter time period of time. And so, okay, let's just really zoom in on where we're at coming off these lows. So coming off the lows, what do you know? Boom, we tap the bottom of the 30-day price high and low. And then we started riding the top. And then, so, for me, just in general, if I ever see, for example, looking at this metric, we are just at the top of, the average price over the last 30 days. I'm gonna say it's a hard pass. Let me just wait and get a better time when we are coming back to the lower portion, which is here in red. And so, for example, this is a local low that was very, and easily investable. Same thing here, coming back towards the top. Hey, I don't need to be touching anything within crypto per se. This is a new project that's dropping, like Pulse or PulseX, for example, and I want to just accumulate that. That's different. But just overall, if something's been out for what, a year, 2 years, 3 years, I'm going to track Bitcoin, because all of this stuff is depending on the price movement of Bitcoin. Doesn't matter what anybody says. And as y'all can see, if y'all have been in this market for the past, what, even 6 months, you're gonna see that. And so with that being said, we see that, okay, cool. We tap the top of this range, and then we start to come and dropping down towards the bottom. And so these are all like, that portion here when Bitcoin was, what, 26 flat, give or take. Like, those are, in the short term time scale, the lower risky points versus as if it was actually touching the top portion. So this is another view, another way to kind of look at the local price action and say, hey, with my DCA, what is going to be the most prudent, for example. And so if we kind of go back to the dashboard, we'll be able to look at a couple other things here. One thing that makes me excited for, just time to go by, is because it really helps explain not just how assets move, but what it really takes for things to get enough energy and inertia to take off. And so what we have here is basically the price performance up into the halving. And so this is pretty interesting because we get a chance to see, hey, well, what does Bitcoin do up into the halving? And there's a there's an interesting thing that, as we can see, if we were to look at, epoch one, so this is the first halvening, second halvening, the third halvening, as we can see, up into the halvening, we had these first two cycles where Bitcoin's balling out, and but still, you would still look at it and be like, hey, that ain't much for crypto. Up 132%, up 183%. And this last one, it was pretty flat. And then we had halvening, and then we took off. And so this is, the time period, for example, of, where we are now in this next, portion before the halving, where it's just like, hey, we had that nice jolt of liquidity come in from China and also from Japan early on in the year, but we need the let me see, how do I say this? We have to continue to have the people who have low conviction continue to puke up their coins to the long-term holders, because the long-term holders are the ones that help us really sustain continuance of price going up. And as we have more interest coming in, then it's just a compounding effect. You mix that with taking the block reward and cutting it in half, and this is like a match made in heaven amongst other global things going on in the macro, assisting the price rallies, more liquidity. This is the name of the game. And so, this is pretty interesting. If we were to take a look at the average is going to help us out here. So the average here in black will let us know that just in general, up into the halving, we'll get a double. And so, basically taking this last low of 15K, the average would be us being about 30K up towards, who knows, maybe, 40K to 50K, somewhere in there. Once April to June of 2024 comes around, that's, hey, on average where we'll be. And so take that for what it is. But the interesting thing is, okay, well, what does the 365 days after the happening look like? So we're not even gonna talk about the full move right after the happening all the way to the top. But let's just say, what does it look like being an investor before the happening? What is the likelihood that you will make money? And so we're just going to break it down to the simple nuts and bolts. And so 300 days or 365 days after the happening, this is not showing the right way. We need to put this in log. Nope, that's not helping out either. Let's see, 1 second here. And percents. Okay, let's see if we can go back and just get a decent view on the standard smaller version. All right, so if y'all look at this chart here, and this is the same thing, tracking epoch 2, 3, and 4. What happens in the year after the halving? So once we have halving, boom, 365 days. What happens? So obviously epoch 2, crazy cycle. This is, going back here in that 2013 to 15 cycle. And yeah, like nuts. Just a year after the halving, people are up 64x on their money. And so is that going to happen? No. What we can really do is look at Epoch 3 and Epoch 4, the last two cycles, because those are cycles that are kind of more in line for, what's routine once the market cap or once something is not as high of an inflation, and we can have a little bit more predictability on how people react and buy this asset. And then so this is very interesting if you look at the other two. And so we just go right up to exactly 365 days after. They're at 366% and 392%. So you can, say, hey, softly, just 365 days after the halving. If you're an investor before it, you'll have anywhere in between, 3 and 4x. And that's not even getting the entire move. And so you have to ask yourself, for Ethereum, for PulseX, for whatever other altcoin that you may be looking at, for Pulse, whatever it is, for Hex on Pulse. If Bitcoin is doing a 4x, what's fair? Is an 8x fair? A year after the halving, and we know at this time, this is when alts are really, really starting to brew up, especially. I think 8x is all the way around. That's a nice place to be. So one thing that you can kind of just look at, just the market order flow for Bitcoin, could really help start to give us the confidence that we need, especially down here during the boring time, and saying, hey, 8x is very reasonable. And so you have to ask yourself, are you long enough, right? Are you long in this market? Do you have enough liquidity, enough money in this market for that 8x to be okay for you? I would say if you don't feel that way, hey, you maybe increase that DCA, not telling you what to do. But with that being said, if you've been DCAing, these are the very, very, when I say bare minimums, these are bare minimums, And I think that's a great thing, to just have a okay feeling with the bare minimum. Because trust me, I'm going to be ecstatic, right, if the portfolio from this portion goes up 8x. because I know I've been doing what I need to do. I know I've been stacking all these coins literally since what, June of 2022. All the good stuff that I know that is going to be here, and all the good stuff that I know that's going to continue to get adoption, stacking. And then so I'm okay with whatever happens on the minimum scale. But obviously, this ain't the whole move, right? So how do we get a little bit more perspective, with the whole move? We there's some more information that we can look at. But in the meantime, let's stop there. And we'll talk about what y'all think about that information. I think we're in a great spot, and we'll continue to track and be pretty resilient with our mind, because that's what's necessary. Don't let all this regulation stuff, get you out of posture, get you away from what the plan is, because none of that matters when it comes to what we're seeing with our own eyes, not what we're hearing, right? So let's see. Who else we got? Hey, Smooth Brain in the house. Appreciate you for coming through. Let's see. I'm waiting for the okey doke. You can't get a desired outcome if everyone is predicting the same move, then investing accordingly. Yeah, man. The interesting thing is there's so many people on both sides of the aisle. I'd say there's way more people on the bearish side than the bullish side. Really, at the end of the day, there's always going to be a bullish phase at some point. I'll keep it at that. At some point. The question is, how long can you wait? Really, truthfully. No, there's very interesting things, that are taking place. Once Bitcoin's low is in, wherever that may be, it never comes back and touches it ever again. So I'm just thinking about facts. Like, I'm not thinking so much about, what could happen over this next month. Because there's a lot of talk for a recession towards the end of this year. And, we're kind of thinking about that may start to be the case starting now, because we see what price go from 30K to 25K. I mean, uh, yeah, I mean, this year ain't even the focus at all, really, truthfully. It should be, what's that duration? We still got 550 days, give or take, plus 100 before or after. And so, that's what my mind is gearing towards. What is the environment going to look like then? And so all the other stuff is riffraff, but I definitely feel that just kind of keep a tab on just any okey dokes by governing bodies, whether it's the Fed, the EU, China, their movements. I mean, BlackRock, look at these guys. These guys are strategic. One thing that I was noticing is like their duration, like they are what, 99% when it comes to actually getting their ETS passed. And then so BlackRock going for an ETF of Bitcoin, ETF. I don't know if it's going to be spot or if it's going to be on the side of being the futures, but just in general, they are the largest asset manager that wants to get in the game. And so with that being said, it's one of those things that's so clear. Like, they want a piece of the pie because they don't miss, basically. And so for anybody, if they ever ask you, will Bitcoin ever be around? What's the viability of it? You just got to go tell them, hey, you got to do a little bit of research. Go look up BlackRock and see the things that they get involved with. Are they still around? And guess what? They are. So that's the funny part about that. And yeah, man, it's crazy because I still have my Fidelity account from all these years. And you're 100% right. They are applying for ETF. But the interesting thing is, you've been able to buy Bitcoin and Ethereum off of Fidelity for like, what, 6 months now. It's been interesting. But these large traditional financial players, man, they know what's up. And so whenever there's a possibility of making money off of the general population, they will try to front run and be a major portion of that market. So this is something good. Yeah, good point about putting more money into the market if what in okay, if once in 8x won't make you happy. So I think I heard what you're saying. So if at 8x ain't gonna make you happy, then yeah, you definitely not long enough, because we get so blessed with crypto within a short term time frame, which like 4 years is extremely short when it comes to investing, getting something more than like a double. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at any other asset class, getting a double in 4 years, it's like you're crushing it. So get an 8x is like really crushing it. And so if that don't make you happy, that means you're treating it too much like a gamble, and you have not really truthfully treated it like a full-on investment. If you're saying, hey, I need a 50x, you shouldn't need a 50x. It'd be nice, but you should look for growth. And 8x within 4 years is really good growth. And so keeping that in frame is a good thing to think about. Let's see. What are your thoughts when the big boys get in? Will we ever see a bear market or just manipulated dips? Yeah, I mean, they're already in, man. MicroStrategy, there's a lot of traditional finance, large players that hold a lot of Bitcoin. I personally already, with this being said, these exchanges, they operate just like how BlackRock do and Fidelity. They are the clearinghouse. They are the ones who set different things in different aspects of, what they can see on their end to basically put it in a position to try to continue to have the market give them fees. And so, you know, um, I don't think it would be too much different than what we've experienced, especially since this last bear market. We are going to get a subdued percentage loss and subdued percentage gain each cycle. That I can verify just through the price action. And really, I'm not going to say, oh, it's because of these people or this group is why things are happening different. Really, Bitcoin, everyone's going to get in line when they are dealing with Bitcoin, no matter how much money they have, is because we all have to operate under the same parameters, especially when it comes to that inflation rate for BTC. Um, and so, yeah, I think it may be slightly different. It's going to operate with less volatility. That part we can see, but I really can't give too much of a prediction on what will happen when so and so is in a market. So that's just what I would have to say in regards to that. So one thing that Art was asking is these altcoins. Now, how do we say or see when is a proper time to accumulate those? One thing to make note of, there's been people that talk about, hey, well, just buying Bitcoin and Ethereum first, and then rotate it into the alt at this particular time. Same thing. You are entering into a dangerous game. People don't realize, actually, if you just buy the alt at the lower portions when it's undervalued and just hold it, you perform better than the people that's trying to do all the crazy strategies of like, oh, I'm gonna take this coin, okay, I'm gonna take my money, buy a whole bunch of Bitcoin because Bitcoin is always bullish first. Then I'm gonna go ahead and transfer that to Ethereum, and then I'm gonna transfer it to the alt the last 6 months of the crazy altcoin season. You'd realize that if you just had the alt that lasted the whole time, you made more gains doing that, and it's way less work. So why don't you just do that? And so let's kind of get into some of that really quick, and then we'll talk about pulse at the end. And so I want to look at a couple coins here that may have some relevance, especially if you are, maybe not an investor over the past like year or two, but maybe you've been in this thing for a few years. You be able to have a little bit of, I guess you can say, understanding of some of these coins here. And so one thing I want to talk about is coins that have come back from a bear market. So typically we focus on these two right here, Bitcoin and Ethereum. We know that they've come back from a bear market. But what about some of these other coins that were alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum? BNB, guess what? It's actually already been through a bear market. XRP has been through a bear market. Cardano, we're going to look at Cardano for a good bit of time because it's just a great case study. I'm not saying go buy Cardano. It's just a really good case study for coins that have been in a bear market. What did they do after the bear market, and why did they do that? Why did they maintain structure and continue to trend with Bitcoin versus the other ones that didn't? And so we have, obviously Doge, but Tron, TRX, they've experienced a bear market already. Litecoin, of course, has experienced a bear market. What else we got? XMR, so Monero experienced a bear market. Ethereum Classic. Can you believe Ethereum Classic in its second bull run still did more than the 70x from bottom to top? Like, just think about that. In 2021, it was still crazy bullish, right? XLM, Stellar Lumens. These are all coins that most of us consider to be older. Maybe some of you guys haven't even heard of these coins. But here's the thing, in their second run, they still did what? Better than the bare minimum, which is like give or take 8x. But these are coins that still did 20x, 60x, 80x, for example. And so Filecoin, can you believe Filecoin made a comeback? And actually, I got Filecoin up on the chart. And so let's go ahead and take a look at that. And brief side note, just think about it. From a year ago today, Ethereum's up 61%. Not too shabby. Ethereum's up 35%. Not too shabby. And so hey, look at Filecoin. So the biggest thing is what can help us is understanding when these coins come out and understanding, well, where was Bitcoin at this time? So that's always key because we need to have some context because sometimes these charts can be confusing if you don't know the history for BTC. Let's see here. All right. So let's see if we can pop that in log. And so during this time when Filecoin came out, Filecoin, like we're talking about Filecoin. When Filecoin came out, it came out in the midst of a bear market. So if you guys remember, December of 2017, that was the tip top of the cycle. That 2 cycles ago, give or take. And so we had this one in 2021, and then we had this top in 2017. So they came out at an unfortunate time. And then so yes, it suffered a crazy, man, that's demoralizing 93% loss, from the get-go. And there's a lot of coins, a lot of alts that are kind of in a similar situation. And so, well, what happens? As you can see up top, BTC came off ripping and running. There's a lot more volatility with Filecoin, but nonetheless, the orientation of the chart is very similar. We had up, sideways, boring, and then this is the part where we want to make sure that we are in the market. We are long, we are strong before this portion of the market happens, because this really is only 4 to 8 months, give or take, depending on what cycle that we're comparing. Let's say the average is 6 months. So this portion, like we talked about, is only really a third of the bull market. So what does Filecoin do during this time? Filecoin slushed around, but if you just want to take an average, somewhere down the middle, where it's just like, hey, is this thing even going to work? Will people buy it? X, Y, Z. We're talking about Filecoin. There's nothing to Filecoin. It's still, oh, boom, locked in that 8x. Cool. 10x, 15x, 30x, 40x, 50x, boom. And that's just getting an average, not even getting the exact low. I don't like, I was kind of having this conversation with somebody too. I kind of don't like measuring from the exact bottom and the exact top anymore. Reason being because the average person does not buy the exact bottom and the average person does not sell the exact top. Let's get a little bit more of a mean towards what does that look like. So let's say you don't catch this exact top, but you catch like this major candle coming down. You're like, oh snap, yeah, that ain't looking too good. So maybe you catch it on the way down. But still, in a bull market, a coin like Filecoin, who has been through a bear market, like it's been through a full bear, still went up 25x. So the question is, does 25x work out for you? And can you wait? Because if we just look at duration, and we're going to go from this portion here, early 2019, can you wait? Boom, similar timing, 731 days. So we're 222 days in. Can you wait? That's the question. Are you going to get bored, or will you keep doing what needs to be done? And so it's not, I mean, I'm seeing it very plainly. It's not something where we have to come up with some crazy strategies, or it's, you can make it, crypto and investing can be as simple as you want or as complicated as you want. It is complicated when you're listening to 50 people tell you 50 different things. But if you kind of know your basic foundations, you can make it as easy as just like, okay, where we at in the cycle? Boom. What does my portfolio look like? Oh, when should I add a little bit more? Done. And you just wait. 4 snaps of the finger. And so, I would encourage, let's just make it easy. And so that's Filecoin. We also, what else did we talk about? We seen XLM, so Stellar Lumens, right? Boom. And so same thing. It had now Stellar Lumens, it's been out for some time. We're talking about since 2014. So this is earlier in the queue. This been around, even longer than Ethereum. And we have Bitcoin here. And so during this time, yeah, Bitcoin is starting to, trudge up that mountain, right? And Stellar Lumens does nothing. And so that's kind of, what we're feeling. For example, let's pull out Phantom. So someone asked, what are some coins I'm accumulating? Phantom is one of them. So let's check out Phantom. And so during this time, Phantom had an impulse, but really since that first impulse, it's kind of just been doing nothing versus Bitcoin. And Bitcoin continued to kind of trot around and make slightly higher highs, and then now it's kind of faded here. So that's Bitcoin, and this is Phantom, for example, if we're kind of trying to compare them. And then so yeah, in the early stages of the bull, one concept and one thing to know is that the altcoins are not necessarily going to track with Bitcoin in percentage gain, but as long as they're not dying out, as long as there's some life, right? So for example, this life here was a big deal for all coins that had some life there. That's something to note. But coming back, right? It's lackluster, Stellar Lumens is very lackluster for all of 2015. And it seems like, for a good portion of 2016. And so the biggest thing was this portion here. This was it. When retail and everybody finally gets it. And then so one thing to notice is, okay, when retail comes, that's when the alts really, really pop off. And then retail comes when? After BTC gets to all-time highs. And so the key thing is hey, accumulating that alt before we get back to all-time highs is probably a good idea, but the the low is going to remain the low, right? Because the thing is, it may have a basin, like the basin is the basin. You know what I'm saying? The basin is the basin. And so whether it's this coin, we'll look at a few others. But the biggest thing is, as long as you're within this basin portion before this time period, so this is a monthly chart. And then so if we were to look, because the fireworks happen with this candle right here. This one is kind of like, oh, a little spur, but this candle right here. The fireworks literally last for what? 245 days. So that's 8 months. And then so we had 2 years, 2 years, of it being extremely boring. And then so you have to have the fortitude with the alts, especially of a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah, Bitcoin may be, ascending a little bit, and you start to lose that conviction. But with that being said, it's one of those things is, hey, that's where conviction rules. And the people who have the most get the biggest reward. And then so buying an alt, while it's extremely depressed, is going to get you the highest return bar none. No rotation strategy is going to beat just buying this alt. Because, for example, like, we already know these stats, right? So from this low to about that portion where it goes back above the all-time high, Bitcoin did what, 300%? And then so going from 20,000 to 69,000. So you go here, that's 300%. So you lock in the 3x, right? If we continue on, go from about 20,000, which was the previous all-time high. So we're paying attention to these peaks. I'm sorry. So, once we pass this portion here, this was just to 69K. So we got 69K right here. So let's say we did the strategy, like, oh, let's get the strategy, rotate from BTC to whatever alt. So we lock in the 3x with our BTC. So then we're going to 69K from about 20K. So what's that? That's just another 3x. So you're telling me you're locking in a 6x versus if you just, for example, bought Stellar Lumens when it's depressed, and we'll get an average price. Well, we'll get the top end. We ain't even gonna get the low, but we'll get the top end. And you just held it and you know, 255x. But even if you caught it on the depression, 60x, right? 70x, 80x within 8 months. And so the biggest thing is the key caveat here is to just make sure that you're well ahead from this portion here where retail comes back, which is typically after the all-time high. And so we got that. What else we got? We got Monero. So let's go XMR. Got Monero. Case study, case study, case study. So same thing here. Now Monero has been through 2 bear markets as well. So been through half of this bear market, going down 95%. Monero's been through this bear market, went down, boom, 91%. So, there's other coins that came out and you're just like, dang, they've gone nothing but down. Now, maybe it's a chain. It has some type of use case, because the thing is, the reason why these were separated from all of these other coins, because what we can do is we can see, okay, well, what coins were out and about and what coins aren't here no more. So come over here to Live Coin Watch and let's see if we could find the setting. So let's go here and all time daily. What I want to look for is how old are some of these coins? Market cap, liquidity, total supply. They used to have it on here. Holders, coin age. There it is. Boom. So we can take some of this other stuff off. Keep market cap on. All right. So we got age. Bitcoin, 14 and a half years. Ethereum, almost 8. We even got BNB. They've gone through a bear market as well, 6 years. And so what about all these other coins that are like Bitcoin that's been out 12 years, for example? Let's see if we can get that. So we got Namecoin, Litecoin. Oh, let's get that right. Come on. We don't want the ones that came out today. All right, here we go. So we got Namecoin, Litecoin. We could look at that chart too. XRP, Feathercoin, even Peercoin made a comeback, right? And so these are coins that still have charts. But what about these ones, right? Mincoin, LXCoin, Bitball, Digital Coin, Fastcoin. These are all things that legitimately just do nothing and have the word coin on the back of them. And so one thing that separated, for Litecoin, okay, it was a fork of Bitcoin. So it actually did use code. And believe it or not, back then you could just create an icon and say, hey, here's the coin. Right? That was the crazy part back then. And then so one thing that I'm in the camp, there's a lot of people that say, oh, 99% of altcoins, 99.9% of altcoins won't make it. That's not what we're seeing. There's still a good batch, the coins that actually have something, not just a website, but they have something. They have a chain. There's a use case for it. Those are actually coins that actually did come back. Now, some of them didn't make new all-time highs, but many of them got close to their previous all-time highs. But a good portion of them went past them. And so, looking at a lot of these coins, like look at this, Noble Coin, Ultra Coin. Of course, this is not going to have any longevity, right? But the biggest thing is, hey, there's a good batch that did. And so, if we kind of go back with market cap, and even if we were to look at Litecoin, XRP, let's look at Litecoin. So Litecoin. This is the history lesson that we all need to help us understand, how do these things go? And so even something like Litecoin that has been through, it came out. So same timeline, right? Came out, boom, bull run number 1, bull run number 2. It's had 3 bull runs. And so the first bull run, cool. If you had it, locked in a nice 20x. Bull run here. If you had it, locked in a nice 100x. And so let's be more realistic. Let's get that move and let's get that move. So cool. Let's say you locked in a nice, 36x, for example. Bull run number 3. Let's go from here. Cool. Locked in at 8x, whatever, 7x. Okay. So we know the upside on something that has been here for 3 cycles, very similar to Bitcoin. And so, with that being said, these alts, if you look, right, Bitcoin stops and goes sideways. This continued to struggle. And then same thing as what we were looking at before. We were looking at, what coin was that? Was it, no, we weren't looking at Pure Coin. We are looking at Stellar Lumens, right? So it goes sideways as Bitcoin is kind of taking off, right? Same thing here. Bitcoin finds a basin, goes up, down, and then sideways. And then Bitcoin starts to make its way back up. But if you notice, Litecoin does not. It's still sideways, and then it goes up. And then so there is going to be a little bit of a lag. But the one thing that is fact, right? This low for Bitcoin maintained, right? These lows for the altcoins, right? Those are the best entry points. And then so with that being said, even though some of the alts aren't, going and popping off like Bitcoin, right? If it is anywhere near its current low, yeah, it's still going to give you opportunity, but it's just about seeing it through. And so that's the scary point because you're just like, yeah, what if this goes to zero? But like I said, one thing that's key, this had life. Once Bitcoin popped up off of this bear, this piece of life right there, this also had life. And so you got to go back and do your due diligence and see, hey, did my altcoin have life here in January? Right? All right, Bitcoin up here. Hey, this still had a little bit of life, right? In its third cycle. And then so yes, if Bitcoin is tracking and going up, this is going to go with it. Litecoin is like that, that cockroach that still ain't dead. It's been through everything. And then so what did it look like? We seen what 100x from bottom to top, but realistic, like 30 to 60x. We seen 20x because it was halfway in this bull run, and then so we seen an 8x here, and then so this is probably in the line of tracking with something like almost Ethereum. It probably may do a little bit better than Bitcoin or just about the same. I'm curious now that we're looking at Litecoin, ETH. Let's see if we can see that chart. Okay, Litecoin. I don't want Bitcoin in here. Let's see what that looks like. Log. Okay. Yeah, this ain't giving me exactly what I'm looking at for. I kind of want to see what's the ratio between Litecoin and Ethereum. Let's just do this live really quick because it's kind of crossing across my mind. Okay. And so, okay, it has not been outpacing Ethereum. So, yeah, you wouldn't necessarily want to go for Litecoin at this point of where it's at in its cycle, in its age. What about Litecoin to Bitcoin? And same thing. Let me make sure we're getting the correct Litecoin though. LTC. See, I don't want it to give us this LTC properties. Let's do this. Let's go. Let's make sure we have the due diligence first. Where can we just get standard Litecoin? Litecoin charts. Litecoin. Okay. That's what we're looking for. BTC. Boom. Okay. So that's what we're looking for accurately. And then so yeah, I mean BTC has been outperforming Litecoin since 2018. I wish we could have a little bit more data on that. So, with that being said, these alts you know, have some life. And so with that being said, you got to say, okay, if BTC is going to its fourth cycle, is this all going into its first, second, third, or fourth? Well, we already know that it's probably not going to its fourth. It's probably going into its first or maybe its second. That's where I would say most people with their altcoin like holdings are at. And so, one chart that actually helps me, visualize, okay, something that has use case, something that has a function, aka a community, because a lot of times the community has a lot to do with, the function of the coin, believe it or not, if you know what I'm saying. I want the full chart for Cardano. All right. So this is interesting here. So Cardano, for example, came back huge, right? But it wasn't till like the later stage where it's like coming off of COVID. Yeah, it did some stuff, but it really, came back, made a higher high from its previous high, and did its thing. And then so let's do a little case study here for Cardano. So 88, Charles Hoskin, one of those smart guys who started, with Ethereum, and he branched off on his own thing. And so our Cardano came mid. So this is right a couple months before the top of the 2017 bull run. Came out and got its 12x. Cool. Came down from there, and with duration over a span of about 350 days, 98% loss from that top. Buying tops, don't do it. And so, yeah, that sucks. And then from this portion here, the duration of it being, I said duration, the duration of it being very boring. I mean, it kind of just did nothing for 700 days. It was just up, down, up, down, up. And, I guess if you want to consider this moment in time when we really finally broke past this level, would say, okay, okay, we finally, broken out of the back and forth. So maybe the duration is more so like 550 days. But the part that made it exciting was this period here of this last portion. Boom, right there, 224 days. So same thing. We're talking, a few months, 8 months, because now we're looking at the monthly chart. And so, the interesting thing is the move that Cardano did, same thing. it it's one of those things that if you just look at it in the grand scheme, it had life. So double checking, did it have life when Bitcoin did? Yes, that's confirmed there. Bitcoin went up about 300%, then came down. Cardano, what did Cardano do? It probably did something similar. But one thing that's different for Cardano, didn't do as good as Bitcoin, went up 200%. So that kind of gives us, the understanding of, hey, the alts are going to do okay, but they don't start outpacing BTC towards the later end portion of the bull run. And then so the question is, okay, do I continue to DCA into my altcoin if price goes lower? One thing that's very interesting that we may start to experience with some of these alts, you see how the low here, but then we continue to find lower lows in this portion, especially with COVID. Now, when we look at Bitcoin, Bitcoin did not make a lower low with COVID, but these alts did. Many of them did. And so, with that being said, um, you know, the biggest gist of what we're saying here is capturing the local lows in the depression period is still the better move for if you are having, allocation towards an altcoin. Because, if you try to wait, if I'm like, I gotta wait for this thing to get past a certain price, okay, yeah, you can. And then so for example, let's say you wait for it to, let's say you wait till after the halving. And then so for example, if you're a buyer of ADA, cool, you still can lock in 20x. But if you have the cojones, right, to go and DCA at the lower depression portions of, this is the beginning of the bull, and then we had a period of bearishness, especially in this last cycle. And so, but if you DCA anywhere in here, let's say you did the average, so right there, you give yourself an opportunity for that 50x, you know, and if you got some things spot on, now we're talking about, 80x. If you were a person that understood what COVID was and you said, hey, let me DCA into all the stuff that I know is good, because I did that, for example. I didn't buy Cardano, but Ethereum was on my list. And then that gives you an opportunity for 124x. And then so I say that to say, we have some other coins in the position of where they may make some lower lows depending on what Bitcoin does. And so, for example, let's look at a coin like Gala. Gala has a huge community of people that are understanding that, hey, these crypto games may want to take a look. And then, so what does it look like? Let's put this on a weekly. So Gala, for example, is something that I've accumulated, especially over the past 8 months. So we'll put that on the weekly. And, we've talked about Gala here a couple times. So let's get this off of there. Let's get that off. So Gala, right? It's had a full bull and it's had a full bear. And then the question of, all right, dang, what does it look like it's doing? Going for its second bull run. So the question you first must ask, all right, at any point in time, did this outpace Bitcoin? And so all we got to do is very simple to say, okay, did it outpace Bitcoin? And you can use these points. So December of 2020 to this portion here, December of 2021. So this year had a 340x for Gala, okay, BTC. And I would do it on TradingView, but they don't have the full chart for Gala, unfortunately. So we won't be able to get all the data. But here's like the simple jack way to do it. Same thing here. We go to December of 2020 for BTC. So boom. What did BTC do during that time? It did a 372%. So we're talking 100 times better for Gala during the same time period. December of 2020 to, I'm sorry, I got that incorrect. December of 2021. Is that correct? Let's go back. Well, yeah, the same thing. Because the high for April and December was about the same. So yeah, 100 times better for your alt. For example, for alt in its first cycle. Pulsex, maybe something to think about. Now, had a nice bear market. And so, yes, bear market of 98%, very similar to Cardano. But what are we looking for? We're looking for that life, that liquidity jolt. Liquidity jolt where Gala off the low went up about 250%. And that definitely outpaced BTC on that little portion up, but then it's continuing to bleed a little bit here. And then so you have to say, hey, does this have viability to just continue to track along with BTC? If BTC is bearish, this is probably going to be bearish. The moment that BTC starts to have some liquidity come back, and then at some point, once these interest rates get a little bit more reasonable for people to take on more leverage, then guess what? That last 8 months of the bull is still intact. And so you have to just ask yourself, is my percentage gain better at these lower depression prices, or if I wait until I confirm that this thing is going to be here? And typically, if you wait, that just means you have a little bit less return. So the choice is really yours. You know, but so for example, some basics of saying, hey, what if we just get back to all-time high from purchase price? That's the question I asked. We've seen a lot of coins do exactly that and exceed it, maybe just a little bit, or just come right below it. So are you okay with a 30x getting back to all-time high if you were to buy God today? That's the question you got to ask, you know? And that may mean, hey, we may bleed a little bit. So just how, we're talking about, Monero, Litecoin, talking about, Cardano, we had a low and then they made a slightly lower low for COVID, a year and a half later. Can you stomach that, And so the question is, it's all about your duration ability. Like, can you stand the time of things just not going anywhere? Because that's kind of what happened. If you just kind of act as, this portion right here didn't happen, truthfully, Kala hasn't really gone anywhere either. A lot of the alts just haven't gone anywhere. But that's not where the alts really come alive. And then so, the alts are at the later portion. So I just say all that to say, returns are better from when you buy at a lower price. That's just is what it is. And so let's say we do a Fibonacci move here. And so what am I looking for? So retracement, just take the top and let's say, we just take this bottom here. And then so what would be reasonable? And that's why I have the box here. And so let's kind of move that out to that time of, let's say, 2025, somewhere in there. Spring 2025. And so what's reasonable? So let's line that up. to that 1.6 fib level of just saying, okay, hey, once BTC starts breaking its all-time highs, now these things can go. And so this portion is, what could be somewhat of a conservative estimate to the bottom of this box and a nice bull run for the upper portion of the box. And so we know just back to all-time highs of 30x, but what does price look like, to the conservative side at today's price? 51x. And so if you say, okay, well, does Gala have something going for it? Maybe do a little bit of research, right? What can we do in the short term? So we go to Gala for games. Games. Boom. Got people like Snoop Dogg over there. Snoop Dogg. What else they got? They got some things that I believe you can play, right? What's the likelihood of these founders continue to try to push out games? Because the biggest thing is if there's just something that you can do with this, by the time that bull run comes, guess what? It's going to track with Bitcoin. Is there stuff that you can do? Games. Cool. Live. This game is live. Dragon Strike. Maybe you can try it out. Go try it out after the stream. Live. Spider Tanks. That's live. You got early access if you want to play Superior. Grit. This is live. They got Meow Match live. I actually played this game. It's actually extremely fun. I had the beta version of it, and they're going to be dropping this here in a couple of months again. Really fun game. Play it on your phone. And then so you have to be able to say and have the fortitude to say, hey, what's the chance of, people being able to see this platform, see the use of it, people willing to say, get into the meme of, hey, it does something, let me buy it. And this has in my opinion, a high likelihood of that. Come over to Twitter. See, Gala. Games. Cool. 500,000 people following this thing. What's the real engagement that they're getting here? And a bear. Got some people paying attention. Hey, what's your favorite Gala game? NFT. Do some research on this guy right here, Bitbender. Jason Brink. Where does he come from? So these guys, this is not their first rodeo. And so I say all that to say is doing the research is a key component, but a lot of the times it's just saying, hey, look at the past. And there are a good portion of coins that did come back in its second cycle. Now, how much they come back, we'll see. But the biggest thing is if you're a buyer in the depression phase, you have a much better opportunity versus the people that try to get on board, 8 months from now. So yeah, Gala, Phantom, Alluvium, Kasama. What else let me see. Let's go over to CoinGecko and take a look. Pulse and PulseX, obviously. Hex. I mean, no, my stance has not changed. Obviously, Ethereum. It's going to be the rudder for the portfolio. But my stance, hasn't really changed much. See. What else we got in here? Phantom, boom. There. Immutable X. I'm accumulating Immutable X. Understanding the inner workings of Immutable X. Something maybe you want to think about. We'll maybe get to that another stream. But that's one that I'm working on. Gala. We just talked about them. Heck should be, even at its low price of what, 1 cent. But if you combine them both together, 2 cents, it's still in the top 100 in market cap. But let's go to Etherscan. Tokens. Look at that, 20 or 19. User count still going up, 330. That's more than what it was a month ago. Let's see, we got Matic. Increasing 500,000. That's going to trend with Ethereum. Liquidity bonded. Uniswap ain't going nowhere. Uniswap ain't going nowhere. high propensity that PulseX ain't going nowhere because it's the exact same thing, just with another network. We already know a lot of Hexicans are going to jump all over it, and they're going to tell their friends. We're all going to tell our friends. When these numbers start going up, guess what? More people coming to use PulseX. Same thing with all the Ethereum guys. Once those prices start shooting up, once they're, oh snap, what? We can settle DeFi, what? Oh, okay. Tell their friends. That's why Uniswap did what it did, you know? So liquidity bonding is a major thing of why a lot of these will continue to track up with Ethereum. And since Ethereum is, within derivative markets with Bitcoin as well, all this stuff is going to move together. So, you got to ask yourself, things like BNB got 281,000 holders. Is this going to just wipe off the face of the earth? Huh. I don't know. I don't think so. Tron, probably not. Matic. So I'm not saying what to buy. We're just looking at the data. I mean, we're looking at the actual holder counts for these coins. Hex, as much as people are so distraught about it, will it be here? It's its first bear market, y'all. Its first bear market. There's greener pastures. Rocket pool. And so this one's interesting to me because I think this is something, as you can see, this is the pooled ETH earning some staking yield, and it's at 1864 while Ethereum is 1734. That's something to look at. But same thing, liquid staking, I don't think is a real thing. Being staked is, hey, you're staked. I'm so used to hex terms. But yeah, y'all. I kind of shed some light on some things that I'm going for. Let's take a break and wind it down. We'll look at Pulse here towards the end. Yeah, still in on Doc Kusama. Yep, I still got mine. That I've been accumulating since last bull run, but also reaccumulated since June of 2022. Once I got the green light, once BTC started to go below certain metrics, and once I seen Ethereum go down to 1,000, I knew, okay, this is real depression. 100%, Nate the Great. Perspective is everything. Because if you have a skewed perspective, because you don't have all the information, you could end up wrecking yourself or not taking advantage of the opportunity that's really right in front of you. So this is just kind of how we have to take what we have. And I'm not speculating out. I'm just saying, hey, what are the trends of what altcoins do? That was the overarching theme here, especially once they survived a bear. Uh, are you leaning more towards Kusama? Personally, yes, I am leaning just a bit more towards Kusama because if you kind of look at the pair chains, but just in general, Kusama is the proving ground before something could even get to Dot, and then so it's going to touch more projects first, and if it's touching more projects first, it has more amplifier before Dot will in the queue of people, if that makes sense. So I'm just slightly, but I have both. Yeah, I have both. But yeah, Kusama is rounding out a little bit more than Dot in my personal opinion. Yeah, yeah. I mean, so yeah, Phantom at $7 for the next bull. Just think about it. That's just a double for an altcoin going into its second bull run from its previous high. Phantom, I believe at its best was what, 360 or 380, somewhere in there. $3.80. And so a quick double in its second bull is pretty conservative. So from price today at what, 22 cents? Hey, do the math. Do math. I think it's looking pretty solid, pretty tasty for a layer one. With that being said, let's go over to Phantom Scan. Bada bing, bada boom. Top accounts. Let's look at some of these whales here. Phantom Finance got 13%. Let's go here. Charts and stats. All right. So one thing to know, uh, daily gas, right? Because the interesting thing is the transactions will tell you a lot about a chain, and this is layer one here. And so it's maintained the amount of gas being used on a daily basis. And especially here's when things got really, really, really high in price. Then we had the bear, but then hey, it's brewing back up. So the biggest thing to say, okay, this thing's not dead, because if this was just gonna die out, it would have just got stomped out, and just continued to go down, especially once we got towards the beginning of this year. So, that's something to consider when you're doing your research on whatever coin that you're looking at. Daily transactions. And then so same thing. There's a lot of metrics, even Ethereum. There's a lot of Ethereum metrics even that are coming back towards its, transactions to, you know, before things got ripping and running. And here's the interesting thing. April of 2021. Where was Bitcoin at in April of 2021? It was still on an uptrend, but it still didn't hit that crazy mania phase. And then so the thing is, if you just look at, instead of just looking at the chart, just look at the numbers, right? Because just a couple months before that portion, Phantom, what are we looking at? We're looking at total transactions on average between 7,000, 10,000, somewhere in there. And this is in 2021. This is when you know, BTC was at 64K. And so now that y'all can kind of see, like, yeah, a lot of these things come alive once BTC is in higher in price. But even today, where we at on a daily basis, we're much, much higher, 234,000 transactions versus 7 to 10,000 transactions. Huge difference. So yes, this is going down, but it's still not time, because this is just in line with this portion here. And then this is just a boop. That's what we want to be ahead of. And then so you have to be able to be an investor during these boring times, even when the chain ain't being used much. But the key thing is it setting higher lows, especially with transactions. And then so going from 7,000 transactions to not even 2 years later, just about 2 years later, I mean, we've got a more than 100x on transactions. That's a big difference. And then so that is maintaining. This is going to die out. It'd go back down to 7,000 transactions, 20,000 transactions, right? So there's a little bit of life here still. So, since we're on the topic of Phantom, let's dive in a little bit more. I haven't looked at Phantom in a couple weeks, but now we're getting back in range to where DCA may be in order. So let's do a little TA while we got it. So let's get off some of this excess stuff. Boom. We will look at the 365-day moving average. We'll look at some Bollinger Bands. All right. And so, one thing that I'm noticing is, yeah, we had a nice impulse, boom. And it's like a wave. The wave rushes in, the wave is going to rush out, up about 250%. And we've come down a considerable amount, 60%. And then so, yeah, people are like, oh man, I'm getting wrecked. I'm getting wrecked. Well, you got wrecked if you bought a top, which really in truth, it's not really getting wrecked. That is just the volatility of crypto. But yes, even in early bulls, yeah, we have these downtrends. You know what? That statement I just made, let's actually talk about that. Let's see. I may be able to find it. Let's see here. You know what? Not a percent apply and profit. No, we'll have to come back to that. That there are several down moves in a bull run, like where BTC drops down 30%, then it goes up 80%, then it drops down another 20%, then it goes up 2x, then it drops down 50%. Like that's in the game. And then so yes, the beginning of this bull run very may well be here, but there's still a depression period, like how we seen for BTC in late 2019. And so this is an option, but that does not refrain it from having a sustained move, just like how Bitcoin can and most likely will have a sustained move later on in the cycle. And so if we were to just take a fib, so it's probably retraced, a good portion, like 70. Yeah. Okay. So it's retraced 85% of its move. And it's kind of lingering around here. It's kind of come back up. And so, this is a really, really, really good solid DCA, because what does it do? It keeps you from buying a top. We're going to pull in some other confluence to make sure, hey, let's make sure we're not buying a local top. Let's throw up the RSI and the MACD. So RSI, boom. So we're going to put this on the weekly. So a couple things here. It's low on the RSI on the weekly, similar to this floor portion of, that very, very distraught bear market. So we're getting back towards that portion. And with that being said, we are below the midline for the Bollinger Bands on the weekly chart. And then we're kissing the bottom of the Bollinger Band. So these are all good symptoms of a DCA potential in my book, if you haven't done so. And so the question is, hey, should I DCA now? Or should I wait? It might dip a little bit more. And then so that's the whole point of a dollar cost average, because if it dips more, you buy a little more. We don't have to be perfect, but we just want to make sure we're not buying these tops and buying of when we're, going up 250%. So this is when you don't want to buy. But hey, we're getting down and we're starting to see things start to level out. I switched it over to the Heikin-Ashi candles. And so one of these things, we're starting to see these candle bodies get a little bit smaller, right? We start off going larger, and as of right now, this one is smaller. So we want to maybe see over the next week or two if this starts to get smaller, because generally, for example, when these candle bodies get smaller, then you see that first green candle. Yeah, boom, that's a solid DCA time. So yeah, we'll just see. But with that being said, anytime that you are a person that participates in a bear, so we're talking about here, we're talking about here, and where we got another op right here, wherever it may be, late 2023. If you participate in bear, then you can have the opportunity to reap the benefits in a bull. All up there. And so what does that look like for Phantom? For example, even if, the boring period where it just went sideways and then came down with COVID. So let's switch that over to the regular. Let's take off the Bollinger Bands. And so, boom. So yeah, that's pretty boring. We got, dang, nothing but, what is this week? Let's put this to the monthly chart. So we got 8 months of just what the heck is going on, right? You have to ask yourself, for Pulse and PulseX, can you stand that 8 or 9 months of like, dang, what the heck is going on, right? Maybe, maybe not. But even if you were a buyer for Phantom just when it first came out, and you take it up, same thing. You don't even need to get the top 43x. Pulse, layer 1, kind of in this wheelhouse here. Large community already. Chain already having transactions. A lot of liquidity. But liquidity is thinning as price goes lower, right? So that being said, are you okay with 40x? Are you okay with 8x? These are questions that you got to answer and be honest with yourself. And so, participating in the bear is, that's the secret, which it's really not secret. Let's see here. What does MACD tell us? MACD. And it also tells us that this bearish time period is subsiding, you know, with the MACD. And, I like using the MACD on the monthly time scale because it really, really gives us a sense on the longer term trend. And so we had the bearish, crazy, crazy bear market, and this is subsiding. The moment that we start to go positive, which, yeah, we may still be 8 months out, 4 months out, whatever it may be, then you're going to start to see some positive price action. And so, being able to buy into the depression is where it's at, this light red, however long we may be here. So since October of 2022, right? What does that look like? All of this good eating. October of 2022, you are early in the queue. Just like these people here were early in the queue for this cycle prior. Like these people were early in the queue. Yes, it went up, came down. But that means, the uncertainty is actually a good feeling if you're feeling it right now. And so yeah, that's just some basic, stuff for Phantom. And we'll drive it home. Let's drive it home with Pulse. So we got Pulse here. All right. We have a redistribution of coins, and we're going to really take a look at the volume profile to let us understand the story of how these things are unfolding. And so if you guys don't know, the volume profile here on the right, you see these two colors. The buy side basically saying, hey, people buying at this particular time or a particular bar is here in blue. The sell side is here in yellow, or this, yellow orangish color. And so a lot of the time, we're just looking at it in its entirety. But one big thing is to say, okay, let's just say we just look at the blue portion, which is the buy side, the demand side. What do we see? And we see the most of the demand side is really coming through at these lower portions. Sell side as well, but the demand side has picked up the most with all the data that we have thus far for PLS. And so that defeats even the top where demand side was still pretty high. And, yeah. With that being said, you very well may be down on whatever you have bought or DCA'd into up here if you're, DCAing up there at the first week or two within a coin that is fairly new. And so 70% decline from your entry point. But you've got to be able to say, if I were to put this on a daily chart and you just see all of this open air, look, we got PLS USD here, all of this open air right here, stack rate at 3001, open air, and just time for a layer one. You really going to tell me that it's just going to just die? But the thing is, people lose the focus in this boring time. And so I think the biggest thing is not to say, hey, where's the bottom? Because this is going to start to track alongside with BTC and Ethereum too, right? We're going to start to see that the longer that this is out, and we're going to have some boring times. But it's all about having the fortitude to stick through that, wait for BTC to get more so towards the halving and its all-time highs, and then this thing goes. So the fact remains, the lower price that you buy it, the more gain you're going to have on the upside. Timing is hard. That's why DCAing is a really good thing to do. That way you don't have to worry about having to time anything. What we're seeing, if we were to put this on a 4-hour chart, is seller exhaustion to an extent, because we have seller exhaustion at these lower portions. So we have the seller exhaustion at the low for now compared to these portions here. We had a lot more sellers in the market at these prices, not so many sellers down here. And as we can see, the buy side picked up at this point. And so the biggest thing is the point of control. Point of control is sitting right here at the stack rate. And this is where we have the most action buying and selling. And that's an interesting thing because the SAC rate is coming to show to be the fair value in the early days, which of course, SAC rate. I know a lot of people are like, hey, we wanted a 10x right away, but that may not be the smartest move, especially for the longevity of a coin. And so where do we find ourselves? We do a fib from the low portion. And, and we're bouncing off the fib. So we came here, came down to the golden ratio, kissed it exactly. And this is nothing but just the shakeout. This right here happens in all bearish phases. Sucker punch number 1, you go up. Sucker punch number 2, sucker punch number 3 on the way. And now the question. So we already see that this is a sucker punch. The area that we need to pay attention to is this area here. What is going to happen when we get to this portion right here? Are we going to stand tall? Does the market decide to stand tall right here with these lows? Or do we go down for the third flush? You got to get a few flushes out. You got to literally beat people into oblivion, especially when the coin is new, to really find a floor. People have to get exhausted. And so it doesn't seem like everyone's exhausted yet because we have these uptrends here and here. So let's see if sellers are going to be exhausted for this downtrend or are they going to keep selling. It's really dependent on a lot of these larger wallets that have the coins. The redistribution. So basically, if you're not going up, things are getting redistributed, and that's how this game rolls. And so, yeah, I mean, if you want to set some targets, sure, maybe you could set some targets here, but don't wait. Like, in my opinion, just DCAing along the way, right, is, something to just kind of have a strategy for. Some people are going to front load, or I guess you can say back load, so save a little bit more capital for lower prices. Sure. Like I said, it can be as easy as hard as you want it to be. All I see is open air and time. That's the key caveat here. Open air and time for a layer 1. So yeah, I mean, PulseX is in that too. I would say in general, if you're getting something below its ICO, so initial coin offering, aka SAC rate, you find yourself in a good spot because you can take any coin, ADA, ADA, we're talking about Ethereum, doesn't matter, AVAX, Phantom, any layer 1, choose one. You just track the price from that point of where the in crowd got in to where it went to all-time high in its first cycle. And bare minimum, 8x. That's just what the data shows us. And so, same thing with Pulse. Would you be happy with the 8x? If not, better start accumulating. Better start accumulating. And I'm not telling you what to do, but that's just what the data says. And so PulseX, same thing here, looks very similar to Pulse. And so what do we find? We kind of came up and we find ourselves in a little bit of a range. We're here at the lower portion of the Bollinger Band. And we'll see if we start to ride this Bollinger Band down. And we'll see if we start to test these lows again. What does the momentum on the MACD tell us? The momentum, and this is a 4-hour chart. And like, honestly, guys, on an hour chart, a 4-hour chart, a daily chart, it is so hard to get major pivot moves and to really have a super sound investment per se. That's why when a coin is so young, just DCAing is going to give you the exposure. Trying to pinpoint a low on a coin that's not even 2 months out is extremely hard to do. I wouldn't necessarily want to play that game. But just in the short term on the 4-hour chart, as you can see, it's struggling to have a sustained bullish period, as you can see. And these are just really more so the rallies. And I can guarantee you, if we were to show you like a daily chart, it'd just be straight down. Let's see. I mean, we don't even have data for it yet. So, yeah, time will tell all. Just understand how these cycles work and you take your pick. It's really that simple. it's not necessarily a shot in the dark if you know what to look for. So, oh, did we not have chart? Timeout, timeout. Let's see. Chart might have got cut off. Sorry, y'all. Let's go down. We were out of commission for a little bit of time. Let's go back. Sorry about that. All right. So this is in regards to. All right. So I think we should be good. We are going back. So we caught Phantom, right? Like we caught Phantom, depression down here. Uh, Generally coins that have somewhat of a use case come out of depression. So we got Phantom. Just going back towards Pulse. User error on my end. Let's find that. So let's go back to Pulse. All right. So sack rate, we have the point of control here at 3 zeros and a 1, which we are similar priced currently. Now, with that being said, we had what I was talking about before is looking at the volume profile. So we're looking at all the transactions where more volume came in. So here in blue, we have the buy side. Here in yellow, we have the sell side. Keeping track of the buy side is a major thing, and not just looking at it as a whole, because we see, hey, we're people the most interested in the lifeline of this coin per se. And so that actually is here at the bottom portion. And so I'll kind of outline that. So this is where we see this sticking out the most, even more than the tops. So coming from the top, about 75 or 70% loss or downtrend. Not necessarily going to say loss unless you lock your loss in, which unfortunately a lot of people are doing. But we're like in the first, 60 days of a coin. And so we got nothing but time and space ahead. And that's one thing that I was highlighting, time and space ahead on this thing. And so DCAing is probably a little bit easier than trying to pinpoint a bottom. And what we're looking for is how do we interact? How do us within the market interact with Pulse once it tests? Because as we can see, we have flush number 1, right? So flush number 1, flush number 2 here. Are we going for flush number 3? Typically 3 times is the charm. So flush number 3, will we have a full flush or will it maintain structure and buyers will come in and protect this price here? We'll find out actually probably within the next week. And so, DCAing under the sack rate is opportunity zone. And so that's just a quick recap on that. Same thing for PulseX in comparison to Uniswap, DEX going into its first cycle. If Pulse tracks with Ethereum and outperforms it, which it looks like it will, because that's what altcoins do compared to high market cap coins that lead the market. We'll have a good time with PulseX as well. So yeah, duration is the name of the game. Can you withstand the pain? Many can't, but if you can, you'll get the return that you're looking for. And so, I'm gonna see we're breaking through this portion because the same thing. If we have resistance as support, but it didn't hold as support, so chances are it is looking like we're definitely gonna retest these lows. And the question is, do we break and to make new lows? If so, look, hey, you should be foaming at the mouth if that is the case, if you are a buyer of this asset in particular. So, yep, that's it. Action is better than no action, but action at particular times, aka being in a bear market or transition phase, is better action than buying at the top of the bull. So, cool. All right, y'all. Sorry for the user error on the charts. Must have lost a little connection there or something. But yeah, that's all we got. We're kind of honing in on 2 hours. I hope you guys enjoyed that presentation of information. Do with it what you will. I know what I'm doing. And bags are, this is part of the aspect of being a savvy investor, of understanding how to have the perspective on the asset that you're looking to have a return on. So cool, cool, cool. Do y'all have any thoughts, information, questions? Let's do a Q&A. I'm down. I probably got another, what, 5, 10 before we go ahead and call it a day. But yeah, I think I answered all the questions so far in the chat, which was, what alts am I going for? How do we know when to go for alts? And what do we think about the Fed and their interest rate pause? Any other questions that I miss? We addressed about the dips from potential large players. Let's see. Yeah, well, I think that's it. Well, I appreciate y'all for coming through. Um, like the intro, the intro with the song, this is a journey to Mount Everest. And so nothing is ever straightforward in life. I mean, and many things aren't easy, but the prize at the end is worth it when you go through the treacherous basin, you go through the treacherous hard work, the treacherous pain, but you have to have the mental fortitude and acuity to say, you know what? I understand the gist of how these markets work and how they move. I'll be able to handle more than the average person. And if you can handle more than the average person, then you will have better than average outcomes in your life. And that's not just investing, but that's just in general. And so, like the thumbnail says, accumulate and just wait. It's really that simple. And yeah, so hope y'all are good. We got a nice week coming ahead of us. Hope you guys are enjoying your family. One thing because I think about, like, what is the reason? Like, why do we want to do these things? For me, a big reason is my family. I'm willing to do the things that nobody else is because I want a great outcome, not just for myself, but the people around me. And so, sacrifice is a thing that I've become accustomed to because I just know what it'll bring. I've had a lot of sacrifice in my life, and it's always brought me great outcomes. And so, why change? If it's not broke, don't fix it. But sacrifice is something that's not easy for most people. So, think about, what is your driver during this boring time? Like, I love my family so much that I would do anything for them. And so if you have that in you as a man or a woman, if you say, hey, I want to have provision for those around me, if you want to have influence on those around you, money is part of that. And it's not even in a like money is everything type of tone. It's really just, hey, we just understand this is a part of life. How can we be financially sound, and how can we be prudent in handling our finance the right way? And unfortunately, we live in a debt-based economy to where just working has never been the solution. The more people that can figure that out, the better opportunities that they'll have for the longevity for themselves and their family. And that's exactly why I assume that we're all here, to have longevity and to be able to provide. And if it's for yourself, cool. If you don't have family, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, right, I consider you guys family. Y'all that are watching here, I made I think I did a stream maybe about like 4 or 5 streams ago, where I'm just like, yeah, you guys are one of the reasons why I even share all this stuff. I could easily keep all this info to myself, and just worry about myself. But I think giving back, and the thing is, I'm doing a lot of this stuff for free. I think that's a good ode to, the type of person that values the people around them. I don't necessarily need to get something from the people around me constantly. I'm okay with just being a giver, because I know something will come back tenfold for me just giving good quality. And so yeah, that's where I stand, y'all. It's 2 hours right on the dot. Once again, I so much appreciate y'all on this journey, and we continue the climb to wherever you are headed. I think we're headed towards the same place. And yeah, we'll all be enjoying the moments when we start getting towards that direction. So I'll catch you guys. Question here: when do you have your podcast schedule? I don't have a outline for that. It's just kind of when you catch it, you catch it. I have a busy life outside of crypto and education, and so I just try to get on here when time permits. But if y'all have noticed, I try to stick to something, every couple of weeks, which I think that's due. We don't need to overdo it. I think sometimes oversaturating your mind with a lot of things hey, it's my opinion, but if you just look at this stuff all day, every day, yeah, you want to kind of keep tabs on your portfolio, but just taking everyone's opinion all the time, I would say maybe is not the healthiest thing. Uh, you formulating your own processes, your own perspectives is key, and that's why I really just try to come on when I feel like I want to say something, which is not every day. And so yeah, every couple of weeks on just like an average, give or take, and we'll see if that changes. I definitely can tell you there's going to be a point in time where we're going to need to hone in a little bit more, and that's when prices are more so towards those take profit areas, where it'll probably be every couple of days because I'm going to be making sure that we are seeing what's in front of our eyes and we're not getting blinded by all the new liquidity, all the new projects, all the new riffraff that's going to be coming in over the next few years. Stick with the target, understand what the game is, and execute. That's how it's done. But all right, I've said a lot. I need to go rest my voice, and I'll get ready for the next stream here, hopefully in the next week or two. But thank y'all for coming through. And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.